This is the Intentional Faith video blog. Today we take a look at a really tough question. Well, hey everybody, this is Shep, your old buddy here, coming to you from the Man Cave yet again. Today is April 6, 2020. So there's a lot going on, no kidding. And a lot of things are changing, no kidding. Here's a question some of us are starting to worry about. Where do I go from here? Well, today we're going to talk about that. And we are now a couple of weeks into the new normal, which is continuing to redefine itself every single day, and sometimes many times during a single day. And at this point, many of us are wondering, where do we go from here? But also, how the heck are we going to get there, wherever that is? So we're going to unpack that a little bit today. First, what I want you to do, though, is I want you to remember back to about 2 weeks ago, and we did a video blog that gave you 3 things that you could and should do to help you through the uncertainty that we're now experiencing. Those were knowing how to avoid a panic mindset, learning how to make lemonade out of lemons, and re-engaging in your faith. And frankly, these are all things that we should be doing no matter what the situation is. But when you consider the tremendous paradigm shift we are now facing, those skills are now more important than they have ever been, and you're likely going to need to lean on all 3 as you navigate forward. Okay, here's some stories, a couple of stories that I want to share with you that will send a message, but also hopefully give you a little bit of perspective and maybe a little bit of comic relief. I don't know. But the first one I call, I learned what I learned in baseball. Yeah, baseball. Well, when I was a wee lad of 10 years old, I played in my first year of organized baseball. Now, I use the term organized kind of loosely because it was actually just a league at Camp Greenbrier, which was the summer camp that I attended back then. Now, the coach for my team was a guy named Dave Becker. Dave was probably in his mid-20s at that point, and an all-around great guy until there was a competition of some kind. Because you see, Dave was a fierce competitor with a take-no-prisoner kind of attitude, and no matter what the competition, Dave wanted to win. Dave took every competition seriously, but he was also a great coach. He was a taskmaster, and I learned many life lessons from him, but probably the most important was this. Always be thinking and planning ahead what you will do in any given situation. Now, if you think about that, that's an incredibly important thing to do in baseball. When your team is in the field, you're never quite certain where the ball will go if the hitter connects. And depending on what position you play in the field, will have different impacts than somebody else on the other side of the field. So, if there are men on base and a hitter connects, you have to be ready for multiple scenarios, don't you? Well, the same, of course, is true for life. So I wonder, how well are you planning for the uncertainty ahead? Right now, the game's on the line, your team's in the field, there's men on base, and the best hitters are coming up to bat. You need to know what you will do in every possible situation if the batter connects. So the takeaway here is, you know what? Now's a great time to start thinking like a baseball player. Planning what you will do wherever the ball may be hit. Planning ahead. Yeah, pretty cool. Not sure whatever happened to Dave, but he was a great guy. Now I want to tell you about another great guy, Major Jim Levis. So when I was a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps, I was stationed aboard the USS Guadalcanal, LPH-7, a helicopter carrier whose main mission was the transportation and delivery of Marines to any location. I was one of only 3 Marines that were part of the total ship's company. Everybody else on board was Navy. The other 2 Marines were a gunnery sergeant who worked with me and Major Jim Levis, who was not in my chain of command, which means I didn't report directly to him. So he wasn't a boss in any way. To say that the Navy and Marine Corps do things differently would be a monumentally gross understatement. I quickly learned that although the Navy Marine team is a formidable force, trying to get things done would be like pulling teeth. Major Levis had been stationed aboard the Guad for close to 2 years by the time I reported aboard. But I liked him immediately because he was a smart guy and he had a wickedly great sense of humor. His work area was directly across from mine, so our paths crossed frequently. And of course, being a young lieutenant, I was really focused on doing a great job performing my duties well. But it seemed like the Navy was getting in the way of that endeavor time and again. Eventually, out of frustration, and no one else to vent to, or complain would be more like it, I began to seek out Major Levis for some solace and understanding. Fortunately for me, he gave me just the opposite, but just the opposite. His response to my complaints was always consistent, straight to the point, and matter of fact. He would look me straight in the eye and say, "Lieutenant, life's a bitch and then you die." Then he would walk away. At first, I was somewhat put out by that response, as you can probably imagine, but that didn't stop him from continuing to use it every time I tried to complain. Eventually, I got it. What was his point? Every day, life is going to give you lemons. Sometime it might just be one, but maybe it will be, like now, a whole 18-wheeler truckload full of lemons. Don't get yourself bogged down about how bad things are. Tap into your ability to improvise, adapt, and overcome, and you have that ability. In short, learn to make lemonade. All right, so where do you go from here? Well, I share these two stories with you simply to illustrate how to approach what you may be facing in your life right now. It's raining lemons for many of us, and the scenarios are changing, as we discussed, daily. I pray that you will all embrace the reality that's facing us and resolve yourself to using every tool you have to manage the changing scenarios. You have the ability. But there's one thing more. You know where this is headed. In November of 2016, I published a blog post entitled, "When One Door Closes." I've got the link in the text below. You may want to take a look at it. In it, I reveal how, after receiving an 18-wheeler truckload full of lemons in a span of 5 weeks in 2009, I realized something that had been missing in my life since, well, forever. Here's what I shared in that post. The events of 2009 not only got my attention, but they also got me to thinking and reflecting about the many choices I have made in my life. Too often, it turns out, I've gone it alone on some of the big choices and expected that the good Lord would bless what I had chosen. Just as often I learned that approach doesn't work. What I had failed to do time and again was to go to God and seek His counsel on how to move forward. I had depended too much on the devices and desires of my own heart. Does any of this ring familiar to any of you guys? Please, if you find yourself falling into that same habit, stop right now and start seeking God's counsel on how to move forward. You have to do that. So I want to share a final thought with you that will hopefully give you a degree of comfort and also tie together everything that I've tried to share with you in this blog post. And the thing is, everybody's situation is different right now. We're all at different places in how we're having to deal with this crisis. And it seems like the only certainty we feel is the uncertainty of everything. But of course, the Bible tells us one thing we can be absolutely rock solid certain of. So consider this from the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 8. "I am the Alpha and the Omega, says the Lord God, who is and who was and is to come, the Almighty." How about this from Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8? Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And if you really want to know where to go from here and how to get there, follow this advice, which we've given you before, Proverbs 3, verse 6. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Friends, as we gallantly move forward against this foe, I urge you, stay strong, keep the faith. And until next time, may the Lord of peace himself give you peace at all times and in every way. The Lord be with all of you. So God bless you and yours. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you next time around.